Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of About Abroad, where it's my job to introduce you to people who have built amazing lives for themselves in various foreign corners of the globe. We're talking with expats and thought leaders about moving abroad, remote work, visas, and all the fun and practical knowledge that you need to know to follow in their footsteps. If you've ever dreamed of making a life for yourself overseas, maybe working remotely or embracing long-term travel, retiring or studying abroad, or even just taking a peek inside life beyond your borders, you've landed in the right place. This episode is brought to you by my friends over at Make My Move. Many of you are already aware that there are places around the world that want to attract remote workers to come and live there. But did you know that some of them will actually pay you to do so? Yeah, that's right. And aside from the cash incentives these towns might offer you, there are other incredible benefits ranging from free babysitting to concert tickets and even free healthcare. These places also make a terrific home base for digital nomads with super fast internet, friendly neighbors, and affordability and close proximity to major airports. In fact, the remote workers who relocate typically save around $20,000 per year by moving to these new communities. But perhaps most importantly, the locals in those communities are truly excited to welcome new movers in and get them plugged into the local network. The problem is, where do you start? But luckily, Make My Move is your one-stop shop for all things related to these towns. Since 2021, they've helped more than 1,000 remote workers and their families relocate, and through their platform, you can explore all the places that are offering incentives to come and live there, get personalized help to find the place that's right for you, connect with the locals, super important, and access support services to actually make the move a reality. Take advantage of all the benefits that come with your location independence by checking out makemymove.com via the link in the show notes. My guest today is my friend Ilana, who you might remember. She was a previous guest here on About Abroad, and she stopped by the first time around to share with us some information on Colombia and how it was building a digital nomad visa. Well, that digital nomad visa is now available, and so she comes by again today to dive into some of the details. She was a key factor in making this whole thing happen, so she has lots of behind-the-scenes information to share, and most importantly for you all, the info that you need if you want to go about getting this visa, in particular with an expedited process that they're offering over there at ePioneers. So I hope this episode is helpful for you in that way. It is also going to be inspirational if you're into things like environmental impact and the blockchain and some of the things that they're doing in that regard, which are even more impressive than what they did with the digital nomad visa. So that fusion of helping the planet become a better place with getting people digital nomad visas in one of the most vibrant and well-known countries to travel to in the world was something that I was really interested in getting into, and Ilana definitely delivered in that regard. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please help me in welcoming Ilana to About Abroad. Ilana is back in the About Abroad house. You're amongst a rare company. We don't get a lot of return guests, so thanks for coming back. Bienvenidos. How are you?
Thank you, Chase, for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be back. And I'm here in Portugal, near Lisbon, a few hours away from Lisbon.
Oh, nice. A little far from home, and where we'll be spending a lot of time today talking about Colombia. But what's going on in Portugal?
Yeah, so I have an event on the 8th about women travelers in Lisbon. So I'm staying at a friend's co-living in Fundão, which is like a small town close to Lisbon. And then I'm heading to London. So yeah, still lots of travels to do.
You don't stay put very much. I believe last time we chatted. So and for those listening and just tuning in here, Ilana has been on the show before, and we'll provide the link to the first time she was here in the show notes, so you can go back and get to know her more personally if you're interested. But yeah, if I recall correctly, I mean you're on the go quite a bit, and it makes sense with the work that you do. But is this kind of like the norm now, or are you trying to stay put a bit more back in Colombia or Brazil, or where are you like mainly these days?
Yeah, last time I think I was in Brazil when we spoke. I had just moved to Brazil. This was like a year ago. And I was just in Colombia. But no, I want to establish myself in London. And so actually after a lover, so I hope to finally be able to make things work. and
Nice.
yeah, have a base in London. My work will be around sustainability, like I've been working on, but yeah, my goal is to kind of have a more stable kind of home, to put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's something like a lot of us are looking for. Like the life on the road is fun and exciting for a while, and maybe you always want a piece of that. But I think more importantly, it's like location independence and being able to work on something that you're really aligned with, and just do that from wherever you choose to call home at that particular time.
Yeah, yeah, you have lived a digital nomad's life, so yeah, I think we
Yeah.
agree on that. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I want to kind of get right into it because I'm very excited. The last time we talked, there was a lot of conversation happening and a lot of progress being made with the Colombia digital nomad visa, with what you're doing at ePioneers. But now this is like really all come together, and it's out there. And you've got some exciting things on the horizon that I don't even really know a lot about. I just know that there's something there. So I'm genuinely interested to just kind of like dive into it. And I'm going to go very broad here, and then tell me if it's too broad, and we'll scale it back down. But I'd love to start with the Colombia Digital Nomad Visa and just kind of like give us an overview of where things are with that now, and what people should kind of know about this new opportunity.
Yeah, so finally the visa was approved after almost 3 years of work. And this was like amazing. Like this was like October 21st last year. And we already have the first nomads with that visa. So it's already working. And it took a while, but now digital nomads can apply to the visa for up to 2 years. And the resolution was exactly as we proposed it. So that's also very exciting because we were looking for flexibility and accessibility, as well as many benefits as possible for digital nomads and remote workers. And yeah, we'll pull that off. So I'm super excited. It's more like an internal victory for the team and the people who are involved. And yeah, that's going to be huge, I think, for the ecosystem, and of course all the digital nomads.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that's like super interesting about what you just pointed out, that maybe, someone who hasn't lived abroad before, or has only lived abroad on like tourist visas might not recognize, but access to those social services and being able to, like, for example, get an identity card or open a bank account, that changes the experience in like so many ways. Like you can't often get like a long-term rental contract, so you have to do month to month Airbnb type rentals, or stay in co-livings, or hostels or something if you're going to be there for a long term. But like when you can get an ID and when you can open a bank account, you can sign contracts. You can actually like get long-term contracts, for example, in apartment leases, or go to see the hospital or get insurance. Like all these things bring down your cost of living and the ease of which your life will be experienced in a foreign place, and like in incredible ways. And that's very kind of like revolutionary of Colombia to do.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And I think it's one of the core reasons why I wanted to kind of push for this and with our team as well, because I have lived the digital nomads visa, like in, I guess, live. And I know what it is to go and try to kind of like get a contract signed or try to open a bank account and be like, oh, you don't have the state ID, like you cannot, even if you're adding value to the system. And so to me, it was like super important to give the best possible quality of life to the foreigners coming into the country, and also plugging them in to the ecosystem without them having to go through hassles like you said, renting Airbnbs, which at the end ends up being more expensive because you get like a almost daily rate instead of like a long-term contract, or having to leave the country every 6 months because you didn't have the possibility to stay over 180 days. I believe that's kind of the normal. Now you can stay up to 2 years, especially if you have a life in Medellin or in one of these Colombian cities. You now can be there with the best possible quality of life. Of course, with all the social challenges we have as a country, but in terms of access, you have everything is almost the same as a Colombian citizen.
That's incredible. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, that when you compare all the digital nomad visas out there, there's like a handful of things I think that you're always looking for. And one, you seem to have addressed a lot of them. Like one of them is ease of application, right? Like you want it to be digital and have it be like, you want the country to actually seem like they want you to come there and not just like, oh yeah, they're welcoming us to apply, but this is going to be a process and a bureaucratic process at that. It seems like Colombia is saying, yeah, we would like you to come and we're making it easy for you to do that. Is that fair to say, you think?
Well, actually, the process got a bit more complex.
Okay.
But what we're doing as a team is actually helping people go through the process very easily. So if you go to epioneer.io, we have two kind of membership packages, and we're offering that digitization service and process because actually the a lot of other visas were changed, and the process to apply and get them now is 30 working days. Before it was less, so that's something that changed, but this is like outside of our kind of like capacity of action and relating to other visas. But this is one of the services we're offering as a startup. So enabling you to connect with one click to, the digital nomad and any other type of visa process.
Very cool. So people could go through ePioneers to basically like make this process of getting the digital nomad visa in Colombia much easier.
Right. Yeah. It's a few clicks and then we got you. So you don't have to
Nice.
worry about anything else. Yeah.
That's awesome. And it's so good to have like a local person who knows the system navigating that for you. There's just always things it always seems easy at first, and then you get into it and you realize like, I wish I had somebody holding my hand through this.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially if you don't speak Spanish or if you're not in the country, we do all the process, even going to the minister to get your state ID, your visa stamp, so everything. We do all of that for you.
Wow. Is it a costly process to go through?
Well, right now we're having two membership types. So one is $99 and then one is $9.99. And it covers the 2 years process of you being in the country and the full process of you applying to the visa, any type of visa. So we're optimizing costs compared to what the lawyer or legal fees are beyond that. So
That's
um,
awesome.
yes, yeah.
I love it. And what would you say is like a normal turnaround time? Like if I started this process today, um, I made that one click. Like, is it months, weeks, years? Like, how
Oh
long
no,
would you expect?
no, it's weeks.
It's weeks. Okay.
So I actually started reactivating this about 2 weeks ago. And we already have one sale. And then I'm in the process of kind of promoting this so we can get more sales. But it's a few weeks. And we have a team of migration and legal experts who have done this for many years. And so our team is very strong as well in terms of the service we provide. So yeah, it's only a few weeks. Like you don't have to wait months or anything like this. We do recommend that you have at least like 1 month, 1 month and a half before of kind of time. So if you're planning to come to Colombia, let's say in May, you have to kind of start applying now, so that you have kind of the time there.
Got it. Okay. All right. Cool. Things are moving quickly. I mean, when I went through like a similar process, it wasn't a digital nomad visa, but it was a similar sort of visa for Spain. Like it was, everybody said like, give yourself a year to do this. Like to go through all the process, and if you start planning today, probably in 1 year you can arrive. And we managed to do it in I think like 6 or 7 months, which we felt like super accomplished for having done that. So to see this come all the way to where you're like, we're talking weeks. This is great. Like I love, I mean, when we talk about global mobility and people having like true accessibility to these things, being able to do it in a timely fashion is a big piece of the pie.
Absolutely. No, and I think today's work and work styles invite for that type of living as well. So if you are in tech or if you can work remotely or as a freelancer, and you're, for instance, like in the case of a solo traveler or partnership, or your friends or your siblings, this is something that is very kind of suited for those adventures outside, beyond just having to kind of move, or beyond having to kind of like imagine what it is to live there, and you can do both, like without quitting your job. And I think the trends in tech will continue growing, so that more digital nomads and remote workers can live like this over the next year. So I think Colombia is just one of the first countries that will enable this, in the world, hopefully in the next years.
100% agree. Yeah, and it's talking about Colombia. I mean, we touched on this before, but just I think I feel like it's one of the countries, like particularly in Latin America, but even just like around the world, that people have a real attraction to, and I can't quite put my finger on why that is, and I don't know if you have an opinion on that, but for someone who may not be considering Colombia, or someone who's just kind of like curious, but not sure exactly where they're gonna take their newfound freedom and go and set some roots down somewhere, like what is it about Colombia that makes it this kind of place that people are so attracted to?
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, and I'm Colombian, full disclosure, but from
No
my
bias.
yeah, exactly. No, I think there are a few parts. So definitely the people. I feel people are very welcoming compared to other societies. In general, I feel like Colombians are friendly, and we tend to kind of be very welcoming. And maybe this is all a Latin American thing, actually. Like, we're kind of very welcoming. Also, the food in Colombia is amazing. We have incredible fruit, incredible vegetables, lots of different options to pick from. The nature as well, so we can have all the thermic, floors in climate within the single day. So you can go from the Caribbean shores to how do you say that, a snow peak
Yeah,
within
snow-capped peaks.
yeah, exactly, like without having to wait. You can only just do that in a few hours.
Wow.
And so I feel like if you're an explorer and if you want to experience life from a very ground kind of a nature and natural and raw perspective, Colombia is just one of those destinations. And of course, we also have amazing cities. Like, we have Bogota, which is like the biggest and the capital, the biggest city and the most kind of like diverse. And you have other cities like Medellin, who are kind of catching up with Bogota. But definitely, like an amazing kind of like country. And there's a lot of history too. And I feel like there's a lot to explore, beyond just kind of the imaginaries of what Colombia is. If you're able to connect with the right people, I feel like you'll get an amazing experience.
Yeah, and actually, so that brings me to a point I wanted to ask you, is like where, a lot of the people listening are not from Colombia. Obviously, they're coming from various other foreign corners of the world, so they're just kind of trying to hone in on where they should go and spend time. And so, if someone's considering coming to Colombia, like they often want to connect with other kind of like-minded people who are in a similar situation. And so is Medellin kind of the place where digital nomads and expats are congregating, or are there other communities that you would recommend that people go kind of scope out?
Yeah, so I think Medellin is a good place. And yeah, I think you're right. I'm from Bogota, so I'm kind of biased for Bogota. But no, definitely, Medellin is a place where a lot of digital nomads go, and I believe it's because of the weather. So it's kind of this spring weather throughout the year, and they do a lot of marketing as well for kind of the city promotion. So definitely that. But then you can also go to, for instance, Bogota, which is a bit colder. But outside of Bogota, you have the Savannah, which is like flat areas and also mountains, Native American areas too. So there's a lot of history around, different kind of like lakes and different kind of areas within that region. Then you also have the Amazon in the south, which is amazing. The Pacific Ocean in the west, which has whales like every year, and also incredible biodiversity. If you go to the north, you have the Caribbean Sea with also the snow peak of Sierra Nevada, which are these natural parks that are just absolutely astonishing and beautiful. You can actually see the water of the sea, under your feet. It's just very beautiful. And so I think Colombia, and of course you have a mountain that crosses the whole country. So we're surrounded by mountains in Bogota, for instance. So it's very beautiful. I'll give myself the chance to try to explore as much as possible with good referrals and good communities.
We'll be right back to the show after a quick break for a note from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by my good friends over at Greenback Tax, the very best in U.S. expat tax services and the company that I've trusted to handle my tax situation since I moved abroad in 2015. Greenback is 100% focused on helping U.S. expats with their taxes, and to date, they've filed almost 50,000 returns for nearly 15,000 happy customers like me living in more than 200 different countries around the world. After 7 years working together, I can say with confidence that they make one of the most painful parts of life abroad an absolute breeze with their automated systems that store all of your information for you to make tax filing easy year after year, and the friendly advisors who you actually have a working relationship with. There are no robots over at Greenback. Best of all, everyone is a CPA or enrolled agent with a specialty in U.S. expat taxes, which means they know exactly how to help you take advantage of some incredible tax breaks because you're living abroad, not in spite of it. As of January 23rd, tax season has officially arrived, so it's time to get started. Learn more about Greenback Tax today by visiting greenbacktaxservices.com via the link in the show notes. Hey guys, if you're still around and enjoying this episode, then I think you might like my buddy Matt Bowles' podcast as well. He hosts The Maverick Show, and he's also a former guest here on About Abroad, telling very similar stories, bringing in people from around the world that he meets on his travels as he runs his location-independent business from various foreign corners of the world. If you guys are enjoying About Abroad, I'm pretty sure you'll like his show, so go over to the show notes, check it out, and give it a listen. I think you'll like it. Well, we could probably go on and on about Colombia, but I think we've tempted people enough already in that regard. So I also wanted to ask you about something that I'm genuinely unsure about, and so you might have to correct me if I'm even wrong in the questioning. But if I understand correctly, something you're doing with ePioneers also relates to like sustainability and tokens and things like this. So again, correct me where I'm wrong and feel free to expand upon this, but I think this is an interesting part of the story.
Yeah, so it actually was the main driver of ePioneers, so enabling people to connect with our nature in Colombia. And so, it was kind of the first, essence, enabling people to connect with nature restoration and conservation efforts while traveling to Colombia. And then it kind of, changed to the digital nomads visa because we realized we needed to give the best conditions to international people. But then throughout those years, I also realized that we needed to create a blockchain-based system that will enable people to fund, trace, and digitize different environmental credits and services that were being offered by nature that needed some type of support. So whether for restoration or protection or conservation, right? And so I started to work on Algorand, which is the best blockchain on the planet from my perspective. It's out of MIT. The founder is Silvio Micali, who's like one of the inventors of modern cryptography. And Algorand is our layer one. They gave us a grant 2 years ago, and we launched a crypto climate wallet at the end of 2021. And throughout last year and now, I'm focusing on enabling the wallet, but for institutions. And we also want to work with funds that are investing in ESGs. And so these kind of combines with the fact that I want to, be here in the European region. And there's a lot going on, really. But what we want to do is become a platform that tokenizes environmental credits from Latin America as a starting point, but with international interoperability of environmental markets. So everything related to gold standards or Vera, but done better. And environmental credits on chain. So we tokenize the environmental services, and then we trade the investments into the platform so that we can support different projects in Latin America. We're starting with Brazil and Colombia, since these are kind of the two countries where we're mostly at. And then like the UK as the base.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
on the surface, it's like helping with the digital nomad visas. And that makes a lot of sense. It's like a pipeline for getting the right people there, but like it's like underneath the surface, there's this giant iceberg floating there that is the core of what you guys are actually doing, and can be so monumentally impactful. I love how you've like connected those dots. That's really pretty cool to see.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think climate change is one of the biggest challenges that we have today as a society. And, Colombia and Brazil are the most biodiverse in the world as the countries. And yet, the infrastructure for climate funding is very, thin. We should have like the best infrastructure, but we have like a very thin one. But then you also have regions that do have these infrastructures in place. And I think there's a lot of work to do to coordinate and kind of get everyone on kind of the same playing kind of field, at least in terms of infrastructure and also protection of natural ecosystems that are unique. Like you go to Colombia, you won't find as much biodiversity per square meter as anywhere in the world.
Wow.
And so I believe it's a place that we do need to kind of keep close and think about ways to protect. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned Brazil. Like Brazil makes headlines a lot of times for some amazing reasons and for some not so amazing reasons. And one of those not so amazing ones is like the deforestation that's taking place there in the Amazon. Is this something you're particularly connected to in any way, or not at all yet, or where do you guys stand in
No,
that
yeah,
regard?
definitely. I have been talking to a lot of people who own land, actually, in Brazil, also in the Amazon. I do understand the critical perspectives, but at the same time, if you look at regions like Europe, for instance, uh, the same amount of like ecosystem destruction happen, and I'm not justifying that we do the same in Latin America whatsoever. But I do think it's a matter of design incentives
Hmm.
and then consciousness so that we communicate the importance of not having live in ecosystems that are thriving and healthy. But I also understand what's happening within those territories and why people are destroying the Amazon. And so it's kind of a matter of like educating and then aligning incentives so that the people who are destroying the ecosystems can be like the most motivated to protect them once they realize that they can find a way to live, work, and be there in a sustainable manner. So I think it's a matter of incentive design from my perspective.
Yeah, I would totally agree with you, and you're much more of an expert on this than me. So that I'm glad to hear that's sort of the approach. Could you actually like maybe we could use this this example, like using deforestation in Brazil and like what you're doing with e-pioneers and these tokens and the blockchain and like connect the dots for like someone like me. Like I'm a layperson when it comes to these discussions. So like how would I get involved or perhaps support this initiative via what you're doing at ePioneers, if at all?
Yeah, of course. So this year we are launching a pilot with key partners who are, for instance, natural reserves in Colombia, or landowners or NGOs and private organizations in Brazil. And what we're doing is we're digitizing the ecosystem services that different natural kind of verticals enable. So, for instance, regenerative agriculture. We also have biodiversity credits, carbon credits to start with. And then we translate them in tokens that you will be able to access that represent a credit. So whether you're a company or a person, you will get those credits as part of like, the kind of investment that you get. And so this is a community driven effort because we believe that it takes longer, of course, and it's harder to build the trust and the credibility with the ecosystem. But once you are able to do that, you can mobilize the community to kind of walk with you in the same direction. And in this case, what's happening is that there's a lot of education to be done around both environmental credits and blockchain technologies. But the essence of it is bringing more transparency, digitization, and efficiency to the process of funding climate projects. And from the blockchain side of things, the blockchain, what it does is that is a public ledger that enables you to access different transactions and kind of like data transfers happening with the blockchain, so that, for instance, if you're a funder here in Europe, you can decide to invest X amount of money or resources to fund communities or nature in Latin America, and you are able to trace that investment and even connect with the persons that are doing the on-site work. And so this is what we're working on. As soon as we are ready, I'll let you know so that you can also share it if possible. Right now, what we're doing is aligning the suppliers of environmental credits and talking to some potential funders from the corporate side to kind of connect everything together between the UK and both Colombia and Brazil in the next months.
Well, I absolutely love it, and I think like people listening, the type of people that tune into this show are interested in traveling the world and spending time in different places on this planet, and it won't be very much fun to do that if we don't fix the climate challenges that we're facing. So I love that there's pioneers out there like you, like revolutionizing how we're doing this and making it more efficient, because that I have no doubt that there's a lot of people that there's a lot more people that want to contribute than feel like they have a path to do so. And so figuring out how to streamline that and make things more transparent is like such a key part of that fix. And it takes innovation that I think has maybe lacked in the past. And so this seems like a really big step forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe at the end it also benefits everyone, because on one side there's a shortage of portfolios to invest in Europe, for instance, in the US. And so there's huge demand, but there is no supply. And on the other side, there's a lot of supply to be activated or funded in regions like the Big South, but you just need to create that bridge. And so we want to be one of those companies enabling that.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. What's like the major challenge like you're facing? Like, is it the tech? Is it the interest? Is there bureaucracy? Like, what are your hurdles that you're trying to overcome?
Right now, it's mostly at my personal life level, actually.
You got the rest of it figured out. That's good.
Yeah, no, I do actually. So I figured this out a couple of years ago. That I started to kind of pitch for biodiversity tokenized credits. But no, I these past months for me, it's been more around my personal life. So I hope that it gets more stable, so I can also focus more on kind of getting things done. I feel like I've done a lot of improvement in the past few weeks, so I think moving to London now will make things much better. I believe once I'm kind of more established there, I think everything will go faster. But in terms of like hurdles besides that, I'll say tokenization of natural assets. It's called natural capital accounting. It's something very new because it's like the combination of super traditional people in finance, very kind of Excel type of people, with technologists who tend to be more, flexible, open-minded, agile. And so it's like this combination of worlds between very financial type of people with very creative type of people. And I think this is what we need to do to kind of get the ball rolling. And so while you get, technology and innovation going at a faster speed, you get the legislation moving at a slower pace. And so you need to kind of like navigate that rhythm and be able to kind of work with that. So I think this is one of the challenges, but I believe this is in general in technology, but in particular something that I've seen that we can speed up, especially in terms of legislation of crypto and adoption of crypto. I think the technology will take over eventually, but I do believe we're still in the early days. But this is kind of like one of the two main challenges that I'm facing right now.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I talked to some people in, different fields, but one red thread that kind of unites you with some of the people that come to mind is this intersection of technology and like bureaucracy and governments.
Yeah.
And like one moves generally speaking, this is different in different parts of the world, but like, I think there's a stereotype that, government's going to move slow. It's a big machine that needs to move at its own pace, and there's a lot of red tape and bureaucracy there. And then you've got technologists who are flying at super rapid speed and are used to just like moving fast and breaking things. And so when these two come together to solve a problem, it's an interesting mix of the minds, I can imagine.
Yeah, and I think there's no other option right now because we are on a deadline in a way. If you look at in retrospective, of course, and also in like a long term view, what's happening is very worrying. And I don't want to be kind of like this person coming, in a movie like Don't Look Up, but it's actually, you don't need to be a scientist to understand what's happening in terms of climate. And I do believe we will need all types of people to come together and solve this and contribute to this in a way or another, and especially innovation and also policy making. So we'll see, but we do have a small window when you look at kind of the lifespan of humanity as we know it today and what has happened in the past years.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think
Yeah.
if you're still questioning that at this standpoint, like, maybe, maybe you have just a tiny bit more research to do, but I feel like we can all agree that something has to be done. And, like I said, I'm happy that there's pioneers out there trying to tackle this from different angles and using innovative ways and like putting this, there's this brand new technologies out there that bring the world closer together, can potentially have a massive impact and do it at a more rapid pace. It's really cool to see it being put to use. Like something like the blockchain is not something I feel like you would intuitively connect with something that could impact climate change, but like in this case, it is. And so I think there's something really special about that.
Yeah, I agree. I do hope that blockchain adoption will be faster and more mainstream, but also that more people will become more conscious about climate. And I think, and it's happening already. Like you see what's happening. I do think it's happening.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. Well, thank you again. I know I gotta let you go, and we really appreciate the work that you're doing though, and sharing like the digital nomad visa is what brought us here, but it's everything that you're doing that has an impact on the types of things we're interested in this show. So thank you for all of that. If anybody's interested in learning more about what they're doing at ePioneers, and in particular about the digital nomad visa, the link is in the show notes. So you can go access that with a quick click and find out everything you need to know. And is there anywhere else people should follow along or connect with you or what you guys are doing that you want to mention?
Yeah,
We'll also put those in the
definitely.
show notes.
So ePioneers on Instagram, and then ePioneer.io. It's our website.
Perfect.
And also on LinkedIn, we're ePioneers, and on Twitter is ePioneers Go. So those are kind of our social media handles.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. We'll drop all that in the show notes, as well. And then, and so if you are interested in any of this, you'll have quick access to it. Ilana, thank you so much. Appreciate all the work you're doing and for sharing some of your knowledge with us here today. It was good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Always a pleasure, and I hope everything goes well for you as well and your audience.
Yeah.
Thank
Safe travels to London. Ciao.
Thank you. Ciao.
Thanks for tuning in today from wherever you are in the world. Once again, I'm Chase, and this has been another episode of About Abroad. For those of you wondering how you can best support the show, I have made it super simple for you. Just go over to the show notes of the episode that you just finished listening to and click on one of the two following links. aboutabroad.com/newsletter to get our monthly newsletter, no spam, guaranteed, or ratethispodcast.com/aboutabroad, where you can quickly and easily leave a review for the show. It's not just important to me, it also helps more wanderers just like you find us. Finally, don't forget to subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, and we will see you again next week. Thanks again. Hasta luego, amigos.